What if a single child, born on a world of stone and war, could see the flaw in every fortress, the crack in every crown, the end in every beginning? In the endless black of the void, where titans are forged and gods are broken, some destinies are shaped not by fate, but by the patient, merciless weight of iron. Before he was a traitor, before his name was spat like a curse by the sons of terror, he was a mystery, a child of lightning and genius cast down to a hostile world, a world called Olympia. Perturabo, the hammer of Olympia, the bitter architect of the Iron Warriors' Legion. His story does not begin in glory or in battle, but in cold rain on mountain stone. But can you spot greatness when it is raw and unwanted? Can you recognize a conqueror in the guise of a lost boy? The night air stills on the slopes of the Phrygian cliffs. The last storm has broken, and rain seeps into the parched earth. 4 warriors in white and gold armor escort a child through the darkness, their formation protective but uncertain. The boy they call Perturabo, at his own insistence, walks with quiet authority. He is no ordinary child. Even in silence he unsettles the men. His eyes are old, calculating, patient. They cannot say if they are leading a prisoner or if the prisoner is leading them. Everywhere his gaze falls, he absorbs knowledge as if recalling it, not learning it. The mountains, the rain, the stones beneath his bare feet, all are familiar to him, though he cannot remember ever seeing them before. Knowledge pours through him, unbidden and relentless. Already the world feels both new and tired in his mind. As dawn approaches, the mist pulls back to reveal the city of Lokos, its walls carved of ancient stone, rising proud and unyielding, crowned with bronze and gold, a fortress, a sanctuary, a cage. But even the mightiest walls are only as strong as the man who built them, and the enemy who dares to break them. What if the strongest defenses are also the greatest prisons? Within these towering defenses, Perturabo is led before Damokos, the tyrant of Lokos, a ruler with iron in his heart and envy in his eyes. The court is a mosaic of power and ambition, armored men standing rigid as statues. The throne itself flanked by titans cast in stone and bronze. Damokos, for all his grandeur, is a small man, physically and spiritually dwarfed by the legends he courts. He stares at the boy, hungry for what he cannot understand. To Damokos, Perturabo is a myth given flesh, a legend or a weapon to be wielded for the glory of Lokos. He offers a test. A forge is wheeled out, and before the court, the boy must prove his worth with fire and iron. How much can be revealed by a single blade, shaped in the eyes of an empire? Without hesitation, Perturabo accepts. He moves through the ritual of smithing, with a grace that is neither taught nor learned, but innate, inhuman. His hands do not fear the fire. His hammer falls with the rhythm of inevitability. The court whispers in awe, sensing a power far beyond them, an intelligence both beautiful and cold. Hours pass. 7 times the blade is forged and quenched. When the task is done, the sword is perfect. Simple, functional, unadorned. Not a work of art, but a tool for war. For Perturabo, completion is not satisfaction, it is necessity. He is offered apprenticeship as a smith, but he knows his calling lies elsewhere. The stone speaks to me as much as the iron, he says. His gaze turns to architecture, to engines of war, to the grand designs that will one day shape and break the galaxy. But what does a mind like this do in a world too small to hold him? Perturabo's time in Lokos is not a boyhood, but a crucible. He is watched, tested, challenged at every turn, by Damikos, by jealous rivals, by priests who try to win him over to faith, only to be met with icy logic. He is a prodigy in all things: philosophy, rhetoric, mathematics, art, war. He memorizes vast tomes in days. He debates learned elders into silence. He sketches, engineers, invents, restlessly. But even as he conquers every intellectual challenge, Perturabo is dogged by a deeper wound. He does not know who he is or where he came from. No memory before the cliff, before the climb, before the city. Only the name, Perturabo. Not an Olympian name, not a name known to the world, but his alone. He will not accept superstition. The gods, he declares, are inventions for those who fear the unknown. Only reason is sacred. It is a stance that wins him few friends and many enemies. What if truth is a blade sharper than any sword? As years pass, his legend spreads beyond Lokos. Tyrants and kings from rival cities come to test him, to debate him, to break him. He defeats their champions, outwits their philosophers, humiliates their priests. Each contest is another chain, another challenge, another moment that cements both his genius and his isolation. Yet no matter how high he climbs, no matter how many triumphs he earns, Perturabo finds only emptiness in victory. Praise tastes like ash, admiration curdles into jealousy, and always, always, he is aware of the flaw at the heart of all things, the crack in every wall, the inevitable failure hidden in every structure, even in himself. He trusts no one, not the foster father who wants to use him, not the friends who cannot match his mind, not even the gods whose existence he denies. When he is poisoned, he survives, betrayal becoming just another lesson. Paranoia, he learns, is not weakness, but wisdom. He is an outsider, a creature of reason in a world of myth. He is the sun that burns too bright, blinding those around him, yet never able to illuminate his own past. But what happens when a mind built to build is turned instead to war? Perturabo's talents do not go unnoticed. The city of Lokos flourishes under his guidance. Fortifications rise, new machines are built, the arts and sciences blossom. But his very brilliance breeds resentment. He becomes a prize, a pawn in the endless games of Olympia's tyrants. War is never far from the gates. Peace, as Damocles tells him, is always temporary, always a lie. Only the strong survive. Beneath every achievement, every victory, a shadow grows. Perturabo senses that he was made for more than this. His dreams are haunted by visions of war unending, of great engines and broken worlds. He is drawn to the forge, the battlefield, the blueprint. Something in him hungers for challenge, for conflict, for the impossible. He will become the architect of siege and slaughter. But before that, he is only a boy. Unknown, unloved, unbroken. One day the emperor himself will come to Olympia, and the life of Perturabo will change forever. But can even the greatest father save a son forged by doubt and sharpened by betrayal? What if the arrival of salvation felt more like judgment than mercy? There are moments in history that cleave the world in two, before and after. For Perturabo, such a moment comes on a morning shrouded in iron-grey mist, when the sky over Olympia is torn by thunder and gold. To the people, it is a sign from the gods, but to Perturabo, it is a riddle, a challenge, and a threat. The emperor has come, not as myth or rumor, but as a living force, majestic, terrible, and real. From his palace in Lokos, Damocles watches with a heart of lead as the golden giants descend. All Olympia holds its breath. Armies muster, prayers are whispered, swords are drawn. But all these defenses are meaningless before the will of the master of mankind. How do you greet the end of your old life? With fear, hope, or the cold calculation of a mind trained to see every flaw? What if the man you always longed for is also the one you were born to fear? The emperor stands before Damocles' court. taller than any mortal, wreathed in radiant power. He is not simply a king, but something more. A god made flesh, with eyes that see all. The tyrants of Olympia, proud and merciless in their own right, wither beneath his gaze. Only Perturabo, fostered on suspicion and armed with reason, meets the emperor's stare without flinching. The emperor speaks, and the world bends. He claims Perturabo as his lost son, one of 20, cast into the galaxy, now found. The court erupts in awe and fear, but Perturabo feels only a chill. All his questions, his origin, his purpose, should be answered now. But the emperor offers no comfort, no warmth. He offers only truth. Perturabo kneels, but not in submission. It is a gesture of calculation, a test, a move on a board he has only now begun to see. The emperor, in turn, sees the hunger in his son's eyes, the need not just to serve, but to understand, to master, to reshape. Damocos, the foster father who raised him as both weapon and heir, is cast aside. Lokos mourns, but Perturabo does not look back. For all his bitterness, there is only the future, a new theatre of war, a new crucible for genius. But can a heart forged by skepticism ever accept faith, even in a god who calls himself Father? Thus begins the true education of Perturabo. The emperor reveals the Imperium in all its splendor, armies of post-human warriors, fleets that fill the void, worlds united beneath the eagle's banner. For most, this is a vision of paradise. For Perturabo, it is an unfinished masterpiece, beautiful but flawed. He is introduced to the Iron Warriors, his gene sons, warriors bred from his own blood, grim and unyielding. At first, there is no warmth between them. They are strangers, bound by genetics and little else. The Iron Warriors, veterans of brutal compliance wars, see in their Primarch a mind of razor precision, a leader who tolerates no weakness, a soul already marked by suspicion. Perturabo quickly sets about transforming his legion. He reorganizes, innovates, perfects. Weakness is excised. He drills them in siegecraft, in the art of endurance, in the doctrine of unbreakable resolve. Under his rule, the Iron Warriors become the Imperium's hammer, the first and last word in breaking enemy strongholds. But there is no joy in this work, only necessity. Victory is expected. Perfection is demanded. But who will praise the builder of walls when only the conqueror is remembered? What is the price of greatness when your triumphs are measured only by the blood spilled to achieve them? The great crusade surges onward, consuming worlds. Perturabo's genius is feared and resented even by his fellow Primarchs. Rogel Dawn, master of the imperial fists, becomes his shadow. Rival, mirror, nemesis. Both are architects, both are perfectionists, but where Dawn is loved for his nobility, Perturabo is mistrusted for his severity. No matter how many worlds are taken, no matter how many citadels broken, Perturabo's victories are thankless. When the other legions falter, the Iron Warriors are summoned to finish the job, grinding siege after siege, buried in mud, blood, and regret. The Emperor expects results. The galaxy expects miracles. Resentment festers. The Iron Warriors become grim, fatalistic, withdrawn. Perturabo's own bitterness deepens. He sees the hypocrisy of the Imperium, the cracks in its golden mask. Yet for all his doubts, he serves. He builds the future with his own hands, shaping history, one shattered fortress at a time. But what if every wall you build only makes your own prison stronger? Perturabo's bond with the Emperor is complex, fraught with admiration and rivalry, loyalty and suspicion. He yearns for approval, but receives only tasks. He demands understanding, but is given only orders. The shadow of the emperor looms over every triumph, every failure. The imperium is a monument, glorious, yes, but filled with unseen weaknesses. Perturabo alone seems to notice the hairline fractures, the stress lines, the fatal oversights. He begins to suspect. Perhaps that is why he was made. Not to build, but to see what others cannot. To recognize, in the heart of every empire, the seeds of its destruction. Is this fate or design? Salvation or punishment? As he contemplates these questions, Perturabo is drawn ever deeper into the grinding machinery of war. His legend grows, Hammer of Olympia, breaker of cities, lord of iron. But with every victory the burden grows heavier, the glory more hollow. And always at the edge of memory the question remains. What is the value of loyalty in a world where every truth is a weapon and every triumph another brick in your own tomb? The galaxy will remember Perturabo as traitor, architect, destroyer. But first, it will know him as savior and as prisoner of his own design. For the iron cage awaits, and no wall is unbreakable forever. What if your greatest gift is the thing that isolates you from all others, when every victory sours to ash, and every triumph deepens your exile? In the thunderous theatre of the Great Crusade, the name Perturabo begins to echo as both promise and threat, a legend forged in siege and sorrow. The Iron Warriors, now tempered by their Primarch's relentless standards, are the Emperor's answer to every impasse, every rebellion that walls itself behind fortress and pride. Yet as the Imperium expands, so too do the fractures within. Perturabo is summoned again and again, not to be a builder of wonders, but to be the breaker of worlds. He sees the pattern. He feels the rot that sets in beneath the marble and the gold. How long can a mind built for creation endure a world that demands only destruction? What price must the architect pay when his hands are used only to tear down the dreams of others? The years bleed together in the din of artillery and the screams of the dying. World after world, citadel after citadel, the Iron Warriors turn conquest into ritual. Siege lines drawn with mathematical precision, gun emplacements arranged like chords in a dirge. Perturabo's mind maps every defense before a single shell is fired. He calculates the breaking point, the moment when hope will snap like overstressed iron. On the blasted surface of Atraxus, he faces the Xenos Vrax, creatures whose city fortresses rival the wonders of old Earth. The campaign is endless, brutal and bloody. Where others would grow weary, Perturabo finds bitter solace in the challenge. Each wall becomes a puzzle, each defense an equation to solve. But victory brings no celebration. Instead, the Iron Warriors are sent onward, barely time to mourn their fallen before new orders arrive from Terra. Another rebellion, another fortress, another chance to be the unsung heroes in someone else's war. Behind every command is an unspoken truth. Your sacrifice is expected, your pain invisible. Who do you become when the galaxy needs you only for the things it fears? Beneath the steel and stone, tensions within the Legion ferment. The Iron Warriors are proud, yet their pride curdles into bitterness. They watch other legions win glory in parades and open-field battles, basking in the Emperor's approval. The Iron Warriors see only mud, blood, and collapsed walls, always called upon to clean up the messes left by others. Perturabo himself becomes ever more isolated, his genius resented even by those he commands. He is not Dawn, beloved by his men and trusted by his peers. He is not Guilliman, the great administrator, nor Fulgrim, the paragon of art. He is the hammer, the necessary evil, the weapon that no one thanks and everyone fears. He punishes failure ruthlessly, sometimes too ruthlessly. There are whispers that his expectations are impossible, his punishments arbitrary. but he sees what others refuse to admit. Only through uncompromising will can the Iron Warriors endure a galaxy that does not love them. What if the war outside your walls is nothing compared to the siege within your soul? It is here, in the slow crucible of attrition, that Perturabo forges his greatest works. Not palaces or temples, but the engines of apocalypse. He invents the Tormentor, a titanic war machine, its guns the size of city towers. He designs labyrinthine fortresses, whose defenses are as cruel as they are ingenious. He refines the Iron Warrior's siege doctrine into a science, mathematics and logistics as vital as courage or faith. On the ravaged moon of Medringard, Perturabo tests his theories in the crucible of real war, not as an architect, but as a destroyer. Here, the Legion endures months-long sieges, trenches so deep the sun is forgotten, a campaign of attrition so grinding that men become machines, their only purpose to break and be broken. And still the Emperor's gratitude is a rumor, his praise a memory. When Terra needs something impossible, something monstrous, it sends for Perturabo, and no one else. How long before the hammer strikes back, not at the enemy, but at the hand that wields it? All the while, the rivalry with Rogel Dawn smoulders. Where dawn is celebrated as the wall that holds back the night, Perturabo is the storm that destroys those walls. Each public slight, each whispered comparison, grinds deeper into the Iron Warrior's collective soul. The ultimate insult comes during the building of the Imperial Palace on Terra itself. Rogel Dawn is chosen to design its defenses, the greatest honor an architect of war could receive. Perturabo is left on the sidelines, his expertise ignored, his legion's sacrifices overlooked. For the first time, the seeds of betrayal find fertile ground. Is it truly betrayal to break the bonds that have always been chains? It is no longer just about glory or resentment. It is about survival, about purpose, about the need to matter in a universe built on denial. Perturabo's thoughts grow darker. The Iron Warrior's discipline becomes cruelty. What began as pragmatism now curdles into a hunger for recognition, for revenge. And far away the warp stirs. The voices of chaos begin to whisper, not as tempters, but as those who understand the agony of thankless genius, the beauty in destruction. When the hour of decision comes, will Perturabo's greatest siege be against the Emperor's enemies, or against the Emperor himself? The Iron Warriors prepare for their next campaign, not knowing that it will bring them to the edge of damnation. Perturabo stands at the head of his legion, silent as the grave, his eyes burning with cold fire. He has been the Emperor's hammer, but every hammer can become a weapon of rebellion. Next comes the test that will shatter everything. When worlds burn and legions fall, will Perturabo forge his own fate, or be broken by the very Imperium he helped build?
What if the path to damnation was paved not by hatred, but by wounded loyalty? There comes a time when every oath cracks beneath its own weight. For Perturabo, the cracks begin as whispers, small invisible fractures in the armor of loyalty. But as the storms of the Horus heresy gather, those cracks widen into fault lines that threaten to sunder the galaxy itself. The Iron Warriors, battered by thankless wars and endless sieges, stand at the edge of something vast and terrible. The Imperium, once the light of hope, is now a labyrinth of suspicion and shadow. And in the darkness, a new voice calls to Perturabo, a voice offering not only power, but vindication. Would you recognize the moment your own convictions begin to turn against you? Or would the change come so slowly, so silently, that only the ruins are left to tell the tale? What if rebellion doesn't begin with rage, but with the quiet certainty that you have been betrayed? The final insult, the last straw, is not delivered in battle, but in the cold halls of terror. Rogel Dawn, once again, is chosen to design the Emperor's greatest stronghold, the Imperial Palace. Perturabo is passed over, his genius disregarded, his legion's sacrifices unacknowledged. This is more than rivalry. It is humiliation, as public as it is personal. The Emperor does not explain. He does not apologize. He simply expects Perturabo to accept his place in the shadows. But even shadows have their breaking point. At first, the Iron Warriors grumble in private. Then their bitterness grows bolder, more poisonous, bleeding into their every action. Their loyalty, once the bedrock of the Legion, is eroded by a steady tide of disrespect. And as Perturabo broods, a new figure enters the stage, Horus Lupercal, the favored son, the War Master. Where the Emperor is distant, Horus is charismatic, warm, and, most importantly, understanding. Horus does not approach Perturabo as a superior, but as a peer. He sees the architect's wounds and fans the flames with careful words. He whispers of a better Imperium, one where genius is celebrated, not scorned, one where the Iron Warriors will be first among equals, not the last to be called, and the first to be forgotten. What if the real betrayal is not turning against your master, but realizing he never valued you at all? Perturabo's bitterness finds new fuel in Horus's promises. The heresy gathers momentum. The lunar wolves, now the sons of Horus, rally allies. Some eager, others reluctant, all marked by disillusionment. At first, Perturabo resists. He does not trust Horus, nor the chaos-worshipping word-bearers, nor the whispers that dance at the edge of reason. But the Imperium, in its arrogance, offers nothing but more sacrifice, more scorn, more blood. Then comes the breaking point. Olympia, the world that gave Perturabo his name, erupts in rebellion. The people, resentful of imperial rule and the loss of their native son, rise against their masters. The Iron Warriors are recalled to suppress the uprising. Here, on the soil of his childhood, Perturabo faces a choice that will define his soul forever. He chooses to make an example. The Iron Warriors unleash their wrath, burning cities, crushing all resistance. What follows is not war, but extermination. Olympia is left in ruins, its culture, its memory, its very spirit ground to dust beneath iron treads. When the killing ends, Perturabo walks among the corpses. His eyes see every detail, every shattered statue, every toppled wall. This is not victory. It is annihilation. How do you return from the edge when you have crossed it by your own hand? The Emperor is silent. Terror turns its gaze away, unwilling to see what has been wrought in its name. But Horus understands. He does not judge. Instead, he offers Perturabo a new purpose: vengeance, recognition, freedom from the yoke of ungrateful masters. The seed of doubt, planted in bitterness, flowers into open rebellion. The Iron Warriors, battered and hollow, look to their Primarch for answers. He cannot give them solace, only orders. They become the instrument of Horus's will, their siegecraft, now a weapon against the very empire they helped build. The war changes them. Once, they fought to build a future. Now, they fight to erase the past. What if the final siege is not of walls or cities, but of your own soul? As the heresy unfolds, Perturabo leads the Iron Warriors through a galaxy in flames. They besiege loyalist strongholds, break cities, shatter legions. Their old honor is washed away in blood and bitterness. With every victory for Horus, the Iron Warriors become less like men, more like machines, engines of vengeance, built for a cause that no longer feels like justice, only necessity. The echoes of Olympia never leave Perturabo. He is haunted by what he has lost, his home, his ideals, his innocence. But there is no return, only the endless march into darkness. When all bonds are broken, what remains to hold a soul together? Or is the only answer war forever? The traitor legions gather for their final assault on Terra. The stage is set for the greatest siege in the history of mankind. Perturabo, once the builder of dreams, is now the architect of nightmares. And in the shadows, the hammer waits, not for the sound of creation, but for the shattering blow that will echo through eternity. What if the fate of empires came down not to hope, but to hatred, hammered into iron and stone? The sky over Terra is choked with flame. Where once the cradle of humanity shone bright, now only the shadow of war remains. The traitor legions have come home, bearing vengeance and despair. At their head marches Perturabo, no longer the unappreciated son, but the master of siege and ruin. He leads the Iron Warriors not for glory, but for grim inevitability. The time for forgiveness has passed. Now, there is only the reckoning. What does it mean to breach the walls you were once denied the right to build? What does it cost to shatter what you were born to protect? What if every blow you strike echoes with all the failures and betrayals that led you here? The siege of Terra is the greatest conflict the galaxy has ever seen. Dawn, the shining rival, commands the defenses. Perturabo, the outcast architect, commands the assault. The irony is bitter. Their rivalry, once private and quiet, now shapes the fate of billions. Perturabo's genius is unleashed in its full, terrible glory. He plans the assault with mathematical precision, orchestrating bombardments that rend mountains and oceans alike. No weapon is spared, no atrocity too far, as the traitor forces grind relentlessly against the palace walls. The Iron Warriors, once men of hope, are now instruments of attrition, unfeeling, relentless, and cold. With every passing day, their humanity falls away, replaced by iron discipline and the bitter joy of breaking what was once considered unbreakable. But Dawn is no fool. Every assault is met with countermeasures. Every breach is met with fresh walls, deeper killing fields, and hidden traps. What follows is not war, but a contest of will, a siege where the cost is measured in lives, and the reward is only ruin. Can you find meaning in destruction, or is all purpose lost when you become the very monster you once despised? The fighting is savage, endless, apocalyptic. Thunderhawks scream through the toxic skies. Titans stride across battlefields littered with the dead. Each day brings fresh horror, orbital bombardments that erase entire districts, demonic incursions, berserk world-eaters loosed like hounds. Amid the carnage, Perturabo walks the siege lines, calculating every move, unmoved by the suffering around him. To his Iron Warriors, he is both savior and executioner, demanding everything, giving nothing but the certainty of another day's struggle. Yet beneath the iron mask, the wounds fester. The Emperor's absence is a constant ache. Dawn's stubborn resistance, a reminder of every slight, every lost honor. Even as his plans bring the traitors closer to victory, Perturabo senses that victory is poisoned. Every gain is purchased with the lives of his sons. Every advance leaves him more isolated, more estranged from what he once dreamed to become. What happens when the walls you tear down are the last things holding your soul together? The iron cage, the most infamous of Perturabo's works, is unleashed. A monstrous network of defenses, traps, and killing grounds, it is as much a statement as a weapon. No one is beyond reach. No fortress is unbreakable, not even terror. The loyalists suffer. The traitors bleed. The world groans beneath the weight of titans, shells, and shattered faith. In this war, there are no victors, only survivors. Perturabo's rivalry with Dawn becomes legend. Their strategies and counter-strategies are studied for millennia, their names entwined forever in memory and myth. But as the walls fall and the final assault nears, Perturabo begins to see the shape of his own doom. He is no closer to redemption, only more deeply mired in guilt and rage. When Horus falls and the heresy collapses in fire and slaughter, Perturabo leads his iron warriors in retreat, bitter and unbroken, but forever changed. If the galaxy remembers you only as a destroyer, was there ever a place for you among its builders? The siege of Terra ends, not with triumph, but with ashes. The iron warriors, hounded and hunted, flee to the Eye of Terra. Their Primarch, once the hope of Olympia, once the builder of dreams, is now a warlord without a cause, a genius without an empire. Yet even in defeat, Perturabo endures. He has become what the Imperium forced him to be. The hammer in the darkness, the breaker of walls, the eternal enemy at the gates. His story, though stained with betrayal and tragedy, is not finished. Some say that iron breaks, but the truth is, iron endures, and so does the hatred of a Primarch scorned. The ashes settle over Terra. The age of heroes ends, and the long night begins. But somewhere in the eye of the storm, Perturabo forges new plans, his genius unbroken, his fury undimmed. For even in exile, the siege is never truly over, and as long as there are walls to tear down, the hammer of Olympia will march on. What if damnation is not a punishment, but the destiny you forge with your own hands? The ashes of Terra are cold now, but the wounds carved into the galaxy are still raw and bleeding. The iron warriors flee, driven, hunted, cast out from all they once fought to build. There is no home to return to, no cause left but survival, vengeance, and the bitter certainty that they have become the monsters their enemies always claimed. For Perturabo, there is no comfort in retreat, only grim resolve. He leads his sons through the hellscape of the warp, beyond the reach of imperial retribution, into the Eye of Terra, a realm where reality itself is broken, where madness and power feed on each other in endless howling cycles. What do you become when the only world left to you is a nightmare? What if the price of genius is an eternity spent haunted by your own creations? On the demon-haunted world of Medrengard, the Iron Warriors carve out a new empire. They raise black fortresses from the tortured earth, each more formidable than the last. The fields between them become killing grounds, minefields and traps, monuments to Perturabo's boundless bitterness. The Iron Warriors become siege masters in hell, locked in endless wars with rivals and demons alike. Their once proud legion splinters, some lost to madness, others to ambition, all to the unrelenting hunger for meaning in a universe now emptied of hope. Perturabo rules with iron will, but the cost is terrible. He trusts no one. Paranoia festers. Betrayal is everywhere, real and imagined. And yet, his genius endures. He creates weapons that twist reality, engines of destruction even the gods of chaos admire. He shapes Medrengard into a labyrinth of agony, a reflection of the labyrinth inside his own soul. What if the only reward for ultimate power is the certainty that you are forever alone? The long war grinds on. The Iron Warriors, once reluctant traitors, become terror made flesh. They hurl themselves into the wars of the Eye, storming rival strongholds, slaughtering the weak, defying the will of gods and mortals alike. Yet even in victory, there is no rest. Medrengard is besieged in turn, by jealous warlords, by demons seeking tribute, by the endless schemes of chaos. There are no allies here, only enemies and victims. In time, the Iron Warriors earn a reputation not just as siege breakers, but as tormentors, their pride twisted into cruelty, their discipline into fanaticism. Perturabo is both tyrant and prisoner, ruler of a world made for war, but never at peace. Can there be purpose in damnation, or is all that remains the endless hunger for more destruction? But fate, or perhaps the dark will of the warp, has one last transformation in store. In a war for supremacy against the hated imperial fists, his old rival Dawn's legacy, Perturabo achieves an act of cruelty so profound that even the gods of chaos take notice. At the Battle of the Iron Cage, Perturabo lures Dawn's sons into an apocalyptic trap, an endless killing ground engineered to perfection, a nightmare of violence and attrition. The imperial fists bleed, but refuse to yield. The Iron Warriors press on, their rage stoked to fever pitch by their Primarch's unyielding will. When the slaughter is done, when the last guns fall silent, the ruin is absolute. And as a dark reward, the gods of chaos offer Perturabo immortality, not as a man, but as a demon prince. He ascends, flesh and mind remade, genius now fused with power beyond comprehension. But this is no happy ending. For every boon, there is a price. As a daemon prince, Perturabo gains eternity, but loses what little remained of his humanity. He becomes a living engine of war, bound to Medrengard, haunted by all he has lost. His sons worship and fear him in equal measure. The Iron Warriors fight on, but now their father is a god of their own making, unreachable, unknowable, eternally dissatisfied. What if immortality means reliving every failure, every betrayal, every lost hope, forever? The galaxy moves on. The Imperium endures, scarred and battered, its enemies never truly vanquished. The Iron Warriors remain a name whispered in dread, the shadow at the edge of every fortress, the unending threat of siege. Perturabo himself becomes a myth, a legend twisted into nightmare, his genius now a weapon wielded by the gods of chaos. But sometimes, across the warp, a whisper escapes Medrengard's labyrinth. A fortress falls. A world burns. A citadel thought invincible collapses into dust. And in those moments, the defenders remember the old warning: no wall is unbreakable. No defense is eternal. The hammer of Olympia still waits in the darkness, still dreaming of the perfect siege, the perfect victory, the perfect revenge. Some say there is no end to hatred, only new beginnings for old grudges. And as long as there are walls, Perturabo will seek to tear them down. The story of Perturabo does not end. It is written in blood and iron, in the ashes of empires and the cold logic of despair. And so, as the grimdark ages grind on, remember this: beware the sound of hammers in the night. For the master of siege is never truly gone, only waiting for the next fortress, the next flaw, the next chance to prove that all things in the end can be broken. What if the cruelest fate is not to be defeated, but to be remembered only as a monster? There are legends that outlast even the empires that gave them birth, names spoken in dread by defenders and attackers alike. Of all the Primarchs, none sits more uneasily on the edge of damnation and genius than Perturabo, the hammer of Olympia, the lord of iron, the eternal breaker of walls. He is a paradox, the builder who destroys, the loyal son who rebels, the mind that sees order in chaos and chaos in every order. The Imperium brands him traitor, demon, outcast. But there are those, even among his enemies, who cannot help but respect the dark clarity of his vision, the understanding that all fortresses, all empires, all dreams must fall. Nothing lasts forever, not even hate. Is it possible that even monsters are forged by the world around them, and that their vengeance is only the echo of forgotten wounds? His legend haunts the defenders of 1,000 worlds. When the ground shakes, when the walls crack, when hope begins to fray, they remember Perturabo's axiom: every defense has a flaw, every strength hides a weakness. The siege is never truly over. For the Iron Warriors, their father remains a distant, relentless god, a judge who can never be appeased. For his brothers, those who survived, Perturabo is a warning: what brilliance becomes when starved of love, what loyalty withers into when left unrewarded. Even the gods of chaos, who granted him immortality, cannot claim to understand him. For all his gifts, Perturabo is a creature of logic, a being for whom even damnation is another kind of calculation, another equation to solve. What is the legacy of a broken builder? Is it the ruins left behind, or the cold perfection of the things he dared to create and destroy? Across the millennia, Perturabo's name is spoken in every siege, every desperate stand. His tactics are studied, feared, and, when all hope is gone, envied. It is said that in the darkest hours, when defenders stand surrounded, some pray not for deliverance, but that their enemy is anyone but the Lord of Iron. Yet, even as the Imperium reels from his crimes, it can never quite erase the mark of his genius. Every fortress bears his shadow, every strategy echoes his mind. For as long as there are walls, there will be those who wonder: could Perturabo break this? What flaw would he see? What price would he demand for victory? Maybe the greatest punishment for a traitor is to know that his greatest truths still shape the world that hates him. And so, Perturabo endures, unforgiven, unforgotten. The Iron Warriors march through eternity, their cause long lost, their purpose remade in endless war. The galaxy spins on, caught in the endless cycle of siege and sorrow, creation and ruin. The Lord of Iron waits in the shadows, his hammer ready, his mind as sharp and unyielding as ever. For in the grim darkness of the far future, even hope must be built on ruins, and even the greatest fortresses can never truly hold back the night. Remember, there is no end, only purpose. Every legend is a warning, every hammer a promise, and as long as the enemies of mankind endure, so too will the oath, the fury, and the shadow of Perturabo. Don't forget to subscribe and join the Grimdark. New legends await you every week. Welcome, Lore Seeker, to your new home for Warhammer stories.